नया IBM 7 हौसला है।
और अब आपको सीधे ले चलते हैं वित्त मंत्री अरुण जेटली प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस को संबोधित कर रहे हैं वहां पर।
प्लानिंग कमीशन। The meeting today was attended by all states and union territories. Most chief ministers were present themselves. The Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, Andaman and Nicobar and Puducherry was present. Two chief ministers were represented by their finance ministers, West Bengal and Mizoram. And the two election-going states, Jharkhand and Jammu Kashmir, were represented by senior officials. The Prime Minister made certain opening comments, which have all been loaded on the net, on the PIB site. So the Prime Minister's comments and a brief resume of that, you will get it on the PIB website. Amongst the important points that he made was that there are three different teams. The Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers is one. The Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers is the second. And the Prime Minister and the bureaucracy is the third. A combination of this constitutes Team India, which effectively administers the country. And therefore, it is this combination of Team India which should be reflected in the alternative restructured model of the Planning Commission. The thrust of the alternative is to promote cooperative federalism. Planning Commission was conceived in 1950 during the era of a controlled economy. But now both the state and the private sector have a very important role. And therefore, the role, relevance, and restructuring of the Planning Commission has to be looked into afresh. The first introspection was made in 1992 after the liberalization process started. Thereafter, in 2012, a parliamentary consultative committee made certain recommendations. He also referred to an important comment to the Planning Commission made by Dr. Manmohan Singh on 30th April 2014, before he relinquished office, as to the changed role in which the Planning Commission has to reinvent itself in the present environment. The Prime Minister mentions that having served as a Chief Minister for a long time, in dealing with the central government and the Planning Commission, his heart was with the Chief Ministers. And therefore, he believed that the process of policy planning has to now change from top to bottom to bottom to top. He also mentioned that in most developed countries in the world, think tanks outside the structure of the government, the MOS planning is also here with us. Thank you. The think tanks outside the government structure also have a very important role in the life of the country. And therefore, in order to expand economic activity and make sure that we are able to play an effective role in the development of the country, this role has to be reinvented. The Secretary of the Planning Commission, who's here with us, then made a detailed presentation on the evolution and the role of the Planning Commission or the alternative structure in the present scenario. She also put forward certain questions which are now required to be addressed. These had already been conveyed to the various state governments. And the state governments had mostly brought written responses. Along with that, the chief ministers and others made oral interventions. There was a larger consensus to the effect that the context has changed. There is a need to decentralize both power and planning. States have to be strengthened. Most chief ministers felt that you can have a centrally conceived scheme and asked all chief ministers to implement it. But there is a fallacy that one size will fit all the states. That doesn't happen. The requirements of each state are different. And the states know what suits them best. So the strategy has to be to empower the states on these broad principles of strengthening federalism, empowering the states. There can't be a universal scheme which applies to all states, and certainly not 66 or 67 schemes. Some favored that the number of these schemes should be radically brought down. There was a broad argument. Some people argued in favor of this viewpoint very strongly. Others stated it in their own language. Whereas most people favored an alternative structure where both center and states plus experts could participate. And they should not only be a central structure. A few, while agreeing with the general principles of change, felt that if the present Planning Commission could evolve into that structure. The Prime Minister made some concluding remarks in which he essentially quoted from two documents. One was the former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh's comments to the Planning Commission on 30th April this year, and the 4 questions that he had raised with regard to the Planning Commission reinventing itself or rediscovering itself in the changed environment. And the second was the extract of his own speech on Independence Day, wherein on similar lines, he had stated that's his point of view. The government, the Prime Minister himself, has therefore extensively consulted all chief ministers. And with the Prime Minister's opening comments, the meeting has ended. It's now being followed up by a retreat where the Prime Minister and the chief ministers are having an informal meeting. No bureaucrats are present. It's only political leaders. And in this retreat, there is no specific agenda. Where where they can exchange their views on anything. This is broadly the reporting of the meeting today. No, it's a consultation which has been done. The central government will take a considered view after the consultations are over. परिवर्तन के संबंध में जो बिंदु हैं कि फेडरलिज्म को स्ट्रेंथन किया जाए, राज्यों को ज्यादा अधिकार मिले, राज्य एक ही योजना सारे देश पे लागू हो जाए, किसी राज्य को सूट करती है या नहीं करती, ये बात तो लगभग सबने कही, उन्होंने भी कही। लेकिन मौजूदा ढांचे को इवॉल्व किया जाए या नया वैकल्पिक ढांचा बनाया जाए, इस पे मौजूदा ढांचे को इवॉल्व किया जाए, 3-4 मुख्यमंत्रियों का ये मत था कि जो परिवर्तन लाना है इसी ढांचे में ले आइए। अधिकतर लोग परिवर्तन के पक्ष में थे।
चुनाव में व्यस्त है, ममता बनर्जी क्यों नहीं आई? क्या वर्धमान शारदा?
नहीं, उनके वित्त मंत्री ने कारण ये नहीं बतलाया हमें।
क्या कारण?
उन्होंने प्रधानमंत्री जी को एक पत्र भेजा है और पश्चिम बंगाल के सरकार का जो स्टैंड है वो भेजा है। राज्यों को मजबूत किया जाए, ये जो विकेंद्रीकरण किया जाए और उसका जो ढांचा हो वैकल्पिक, वो वैधानिक हो, जिससे संकेत मिलता है कि इंटरस्टेट काउंसिल जैसी संस्था को ये अधिकार दिए जाए, इसके वो पक्ष में हैं। और उनके वित्त मंत्री ने लगभग इसी तर्क को आगे बढ़ाया।
Sir, I am Gurdeep Singh, I am the roving editor of UNI. My first question is, how many chief ministers were for maintaining the existing structure of the Planning Commission? Secondly, Dr. Aluwali had suggested that carry out a midterm review? Would you be doing this? Third, to have a loose planning commission, won't it have a political fallout after 5 years?
You see, I'll only answer your first question. As such, people have given detailed written presentations. They made short, brief oral presentations. And a very large majority was in favor of a changed structure. Some were in favor of a change on the issues of principle, that is in terms of approach, but were in favor of evolving the present structure into one.
Yeah, one minute. We'll come to you.